How's it going, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video. My name is Alex, and welcome back to the Puck Luck channel. So, this video is specifically for the Montreal Canadiens, for you guys. You guys should definitely listen in. If you're not a Montreal fan, I still, would like you to listen because there's some things I want to talk about that are hockey related, about all teams really, and not just about the Montreal Canadiens. But this is obviously specifically more driven for Montreal Canadiens fans because listen, you made it to the Stanley Cup final, and going into the final games of the season, you kind of looked iffy. You had a couple guys out. Price hadn't played a game in a while. Gallagher also down with an injury. You have a guy named Cole Caulfield coming up and showing that he has a lot of potential. Drouin's left the team, unfortunately. Tatar isn't really performing as well as he can. There are guys missing from the roster. But you still make the playoffs. And you get game one against the North Division champions, if you want to call them that, or North Division top seed, the Toronto Maple Leafs. You got Marner, Matthews, Morgan Riley, Nylander, and then Campbell, who's playing out of his mind. It's going to be a tough matchup. But the Canadiens prevail that one, as you know. But I don't want to talk about Tampa Bay. I don't want to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs choking, because that has nothing to do with it. I think Montreal as a team, they successfully shut down the Matthews Marner, and they couldn't shut down Nylander, but if you shut down everybody else, it's one guy doing everything, you can still win the series. And they found their groove. Obviously, some lucky bounces. Galchenyuk turning the puck over in overtime. They coming down the ice and scoring. A couple of lucky bounces here and there. But the Canadiens found a game. They found a game plan. And yes, I would have called it a lucky break for them. But if you watch the rest of the playoffs, I don't call it a lucky break. If you look at the second series, round two, why am I blanking? The Canadiens versus the Jets. It's a great series. You got, again, great stellar players on the other end. You got Scheifele, you've got Wheeler, you've got Hellbuck in the back. Unfortunately, Kyle Connor. That's another guy who, these are superstars. Listen, it's not easy. You shut them down. Scheifele takes a stupid suspension. We move on from that series. 4-0. I mean, a sweep. You can't feel better than that. Carey Price playing as well as he can ever play. We move on to the next round. Vegas. Finally, a team out of the North. It's going to be difficult for many reasons. So we're going to go into detail on this series. You come into game one, you play well, and the Canadiens are off to a start, and the Canadiens, you see some sparks of good team play. And obviously Vegas lacks a little bit of a finals team. They've made the finals once in their inaugural season, but ever since that, they've struggled to make the finals. Not that that's, a discredit to them for making they make it pretty far every year. They've basically been gifted a good team by the league, but this time around, we'll see what Seattle does. But anyways, that's not the point. The Canadiens struggle a little bit, but they find their groove, and they're finding ways to beat a number one goalie in Marc-Andre Fleury. And they're finding a way to shut down Stone. They're finding a way to shut down Pacioretty. And they're finding ways to shut down Pietrangelo, who was, by the way, a really good player for them in those games. He was finding the shots, and he was scoring. And they found a way to shut him down, and Carey Price played very solid in that series as well. And the Canadiens had to fight the referees on that. I'm going to touch on the referees here because I'm very convinced that the referees were there to try to stop the Canadiens from making it as far as possible. It's blatantly obvious, and it was a bad attempt by Bettman to try to get a American team in the finals. And I want to talk about TV ratings in the finals and stuff like that. The Montreal Canadiens making the finals, I don't think would have changed the ratings, whether they're good or bad for this year's round. But if we look at last year's ratings, they were actually 38% less than previous finals. They only concurred around 950,000 views, which is pretty bad. If you look at the 2016 Stanley Cup Finals, it was also one of the lowest rating finals, and that's two American teams going at it. You got a warm state in the Sharks, who made it to the finals, and then you have the Pittsburgh Penguins, who is technically a very well respected sports organization with legends written all over it. Why wouldn't that series do well? I mean, Sidney Crosby, for crying out loud, is in that. So somehow that series doesn't do well in the finals. So my theory was that the refs and Bettman had a job to do, was to get Montreal not to go to the finals because they thought that would be bad for TV ratings. At the end of the day, the NHL is about money and about ratings. I mean, that's why the NHL has refused to address the Chicago Blackhawk allegation, because it would affect their ratings, which they honestly, at this point, if in the next 2 days, less than that really, if the NHL has not talked about it, they're purposely and being naive and are refusing to talk about it, and they should. So the Canadiens being in the finals wouldn't have made a difference in terms of ratings. Tampa Bay was in the finals last season; their ratings weren't great, and they're in the finals again. The ratings aren't going to be great. I'm curious to see what happens there. But anyways, the reffing was bad, and I made a video about it. And yes, Montreal, by the way, going into the finals after the Vegas series, had the least amount of power play time in the last 4 teams that were left. They were completely way down there in terms of power play time. They barely got any calls from any of the series. It was pretty interesting to see that contrast between a team getting a bunch of power plays and a team not getting a bunch of power plays. The Canadiens' penalty kill is another thing to talk about in all the series. Phenomenal penalty kill, a great streak of penalty kills, and then finally you come against Tampa Bay, and it's it ends. But that was inevitable. Let's talk about the Tampa Bay series. You have superstars written all over that team, and obviously they have the ability to have more players because Kucherov was out for the season. And I'll try not to. Okay, you know what? Fine, I'll address it. I'm not against the $18 million over cap space. You utilized it. It's fine. I mean, that's what gave Montreal the chance to give Cole Caulfield into the lineup because Drouin left and whatnot. So that's fine. I'm not a problem with that. My issue though is how can a guy come back game 1 for the playoffs and not have basically no signs of injury? I mean, yes, he recovered. And be able to play at his top performance. I just feel like Kucherov could have played a game or 2 before the end of the season, and you can't tell me otherwise that he prolonged the injury just long enough to the point where that $18 million still stood in the playoffs, and then he played. That's just my 2 cents. You can take it as you can. But I think that there was some sketchiness going there. And yes, people say that the doctors were checking in, but doctors can still fudge the numbers. And yes, the league says that they've checked in on that, but I don't know. I find it hard to believe that Kucherov was injured just right to the first game of the playoffs. Just perfect. It would have been a little bit more believable if he came back for game 2 or something, but right to the first game of the playoffs, man, he has good recovery time. Anyways, yes, you're playing against superstars on the Tampa Bay Lightning. You're playing Hedman, Point, Kucherov, Stamkos, and Vasilevsky, McDonough, Sergachev, Killorn. I mean, there are so many names who are great players for them. You're playing against an all-star team, really. That's it. All dynasties have to come to an end. Essentially, you're gonna lose a lot of guys in the playoffs for the in the off season for the Tampa Lightning. And yeah, game 1 wasn't great. Nerves were there. You could see they were outperformed, and it just wasn't a great game. Game 2 was much better, except it just didn't go your way. I mean, there's not much you could do there, but you did well. Good job. And then game 3, it was a great game. For Tampa Bay. They outplayed Montreal in all aspects of the game. Montreal, again, looking nervous back in their own building, feeling the pressure of 28 years of, no playoff appearance, Stanley Cup Finals appearances, and you're finally here. Carey Price's first chance to win a cup. The nerves were there. It happens. So you lose that series as well, and that's fine. Not that series, sorry. You lose that game, and that's fine. Going into game 4, as a Montreal fan, and as maybe many other Montreal fans would want to say, you just wanted to see something that proved that you were a team that was allowed to be here. You worked so hard to be here. You wanted to show something that you belonged. And you got it. That game 4 was your proof that this team belonged, and they worked hard. Game 5, as you know, wasn't long ago, less than 24 hours ago. They won the game, swept 1-0, not swept, but 1-0 game. A good effort by the Canadiens. Not the greatest offensive performance, but they came close, and that was it. The end of the series. Tampa Bay wins back-to-back, and so be it. As a Montreal fan, you got to feel bad for Carey Price, Shea Weber. It might be their only chances to being in a final. They're not old. They're not young. They might have one more go if Montreal is able to put together a team. Maybe in 3 years they'll have one more go at it. But besides that, this might have been Carey Price, Shea Weber's best chances to be in a final. Corey Perry seems to find a way into the finals every year, so I have no worry about him. Although I hope Montreal signs him. He's a fantastic player and he brings a lot to the team. But yeah, I mean, you got to feel bad for those guys. But if you're looking at the bigger picture, if you're looking at this entire team, you just brought Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, Romanov, all to the finals. These guys are young. These guys are your future. If these guys stick with the team, if Suzuki gets re-signed, he will. Cole Caulfield gets re-signed, he will. And Romanov gets re-signed, and he probably will. And Kotkaniemi. If all these guys stick together with the team, you have a fantastic foundation for a winning team in the future. And you just brought them to their first Stanley Cup final. And they're so young. I mean, there's nothing more impressionable than being this far and knowing how hard it takes to get here. I mean, there's many guys who never make it. I mean, for example, Alex Ovechkin. Took him years to get to the finals, and he won it, which is great. But it took him years, and he knows how hard it is to get there. Teams don't just walk their way into the finals easily. My point is that it takes a lot to get there. You sacrifice a lot to be here. You trade players that you don't want to trade for the chance of getting into the finals. You give away picks, you give away this, you pay guys a lot of money. You gave up practically nothing to be there. You brought in guys who cost you nothing. Stahl, Perry, I mean, Anderson, you can even put on that. Toffoli for free and free agency. I mean, these guys cost you nothing, basically. And you've succeeded to make the playoffs. And you succeeded to make it to the finals. There's nothing more motivating for a franchise than knowing that you've just brought your number one guys to the finals. So, as a Montreal fan, are you happy? Are you sad? Are you proud of this team? I mean, for most part, what I've been reading, a lot of guys are really happy with the way that this went. Montreal did a great job for what they had, and they cost them, again, nothing to be here. You outplayed Toronto in the last few games to make it to the second round. You outplayed Winnipeg. You outplayed the Vegas Golden Knights. Don't listen to the critics. Don't listen to anybody. You deserve to be there, no matter what somebody says, whether you make the playoffs or not next season. So, be proud of yourselves. Keep your head up. And your future looks really great if you're a Montreal Canadiens fan. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching the video. If you did enjoy, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.